Hey everyone, it's Kelly. I am back with a new 12 by 12 scrapbook process video, and for this layout today I'm mainly going to be using the Paige Evans Oh My Heart collection. That is a Pink Paislee collection, and that purple pattern paper that you see in the background, that is what I'm going to be using as the base for my layout. What I'm doing here is I created a heart template in Cricut Design Space. I knew that I wanted a large heart on this background and I was going to white it out with some gesso, and I thought using my Cricut would be the perfect way to create this template. And basically all I'm using that template for is just to make sure that I get the heart centered on the background and that it actually turns into a heart shape when I am placing the gesso. Sometimes I can get a little off track if I'm just trying to freehand something. So definitely creating a template was the way to go for me in order to create this heart on the background. And I just cut this template using a scrap piece of pattern paper. I keep a box of pattern paper in my craft room for this reason. It's paper that I know that I will never use on a layout, and if I'm ever going to use a cut file for the first time and I'm not sure how large I want to cut the image, I'll pull a piece of paper out of that box and do a test run, or I use it to create templates such as this. Okay, so I'm happy with the coverage that I have with the gesso. I wasn't going for perfection here. I just wanted to have a basic heart image, and I wanted to fade out the background a little bit for the watercolor that I'm going to be placing on. So I wasn't worried that it wasn't a solid white heart image. I just wanted to mute that pattern slightly. Now I'm grabbing my Jane Davenport Brights watercolor palette, and I am mixing together a purple and a blue. I'm trying to match the purple that is in the Oh My Heart collection, and I'm placing that watercolor on an acrylic block first because I wasn't sure how much color I was going to need to mix together to get the shade of purple that I was wanting, and I wasn't wanting a huge glob of that watercolor on the packaging. I thought that it would be easier to transfer the watercolor from the acrylic block to the packaging, and you'll see in just a moment what I'm talking about, because I end up mixing it directly onto the packaging and I end up having too much paint, and I was a little worried that the paper would get too saturated in a couple spots or the color would be too heavy, but it ends up turning out okay. But I do go back to mixing the colors on the acrylic block because I had a lot more control on how much color I was applying to the background. So here's where I'm applying all of that color, and I luckily could dance it around the layout and it didn't all fall off the packaging in one spot. So it did turn out okay, but I was a little nervous when I saw how much color I had on the packaging and I was getting ready to flip that packaging over to apply it to the background. So I go back and forth a couple times trying to decide on whether or not I have enough color on the background. I am going to go ahead and mix together some more of that blue and purple to add some splatters to the background. So I'm just mixing the colors together on the packaging and then just using my paintbrush and tapping the paintbrush to flick those splatters just directly on the background. And I am going to go outside the line of the heart a little bit because I did want to add some color surrounding that white gessoed heart. Now I want to add a little bit of machine stitching around the border of the heart just to give it a little bit more of a defined edge, so that way you can really tell that this is supposed to be a heart on the background. So I just placed the template back onto the pattern paper and used my pencil to draw around the heart, and then I took it over to my sewing machine and I went around it quite a few times. I think I went around it 7 or 8 times just to get the thickness of the border that I was looking for. And these are the photos that I'm going to be scrapbooking today. This is going to be a Mother's Day themed layout. And these photos, I think they were taken back in 2014. It's my mom and all of my siblings. We were at their house for Mother's Day, and I asked my dad to snap a photo of the 5 of us, and he did. And then my brother was being all goofy and making us laugh, and my dad happened to take a picture of him making us laugh. So I wanted to make sure I included that photo in this layout also. Now I'm starting to add a bunch of paper flowers to the background, and I wanted to fill in this heart shape with these flowers. And I know I'm covering up a lot of the watercolor that I did, but you can still see it peeking through the flowers, which was what my ultimate goal was with this layout. This is how I had envisioned it. And these flowers, I can't even tell you how long I've had them. I want to say that I've had them close to a decade. They're close to my heart paper flowers, and they came in a tube, and I actually had 2 tubes of them, and they were in my garage sale pile. I was planning on selling them because I had had them so long and had not found a way to use them. And then I had this idea come and I thought, let's just go ahead and try it. The worst thing that can happen is that I won't like it and I'll just throw it away. But I was really happy with how it turned out. They add a ton of texture to the background, and I had just enough to fill in that heart exactly the way that I had envisioned it. And this turns out almost exactly like I saw it in my head, which isn't always the case. Sometimes I find that the ideas I have in my head don't always translate well onto paper. So this was one instance where it worked out just as I thought it would. And I adhered each of those flowers just using a tiny bit of liquid adhesive right in the center of the flower. I did not record that whole process because it did take some time to get those flowers adhered exactly where I wanted them. And now I have mixed together some more of that watercolor on the acrylic block, and I'm transferring it onto the packaging. I wanted to add a little bit more watercolor where the photos were going to be placed on the layout. So I'm just taking a little bit more time to add that watercolor, and I do add more splatters directly on top of the flowers because I wanted to add just a little bit of color to the flowers. So once I'm happy with that, I'm going to move on to the photos, and I do add some fun foam behind the photos because I did want to raise them off the layout slightly. And when I start to work with the photos, I start to struggle. I'm not sure how to embellish this because the background, it's not really busy, but there's a lot going on. So with the flowers and the texture and the sewing and the watercolor, I was having a hard time figuring out where to place my embellishments. And I think a part of the issue that I was having is the photos were a little bit larger than what I had originally intended them to be. So I do end up going back and reprinting the photos just slightly smaller, and the layout starts to come together much more quickly once I get the photos resized. So right now I'm just trying to figure out how I want to arrange the layers behind the photo. I grabbed the Pink Paislee Oh My Heart ephemera pack and then also the Pink Paislee Oh My Heart 6x6 paper pad, and I'm just trimming down some pieces, trying to figure out how much color I want to add to the background, how big of pieces I want to add to the background behind the photos. I am going to use the title Mom Life for this layout, and I am going to use the Pink Paislee Oh My Heart thickers to spell out that title. And I have it positioned on the page right now, but I actually end up moving it to the opposite side. Here is where I decided to go ahead and reprint the photos, and I actually reprinted them twice. So I have two of each photo, and I'm going to layer them behind each other and use that as a layering piece behind the photo. And now I'm just strictly using the Pink Paislee Oh My Heart ephemera pack for the layers, and it takes me a little while to get them arranged just as I want them because I end up trimming quite a few of them in half, so that way I can use a portion of the die cut with one photo and then the other portion with the other photo, because I wanted to make sure that the colors in the layers that I had behind the photos were balanced. I didn't want to have too much pink on one side and not enough pink on the other. So by trimming the die cut pieces in half, that ensures that I'll be able to have that same color on both photos. And hopefully that makes sense. I just played that clip back and it just sounds like a lot of rambling. It made sense in my head as I was saying it, and hopefully it makes sense to you as you were listening to it. Basically, I just want to make sure that I have the colors balanced on both photo clusters is what I was trying to say. Now I'm going to add a layer of vellum behind those photo clusters just to add a little bit of softness to the edges. And I'm going to use my Close to My Heart mini stapler to staple a lot of these layers together. I like the texture that staples bring, and I also like that it holds together all of those teeny tiny layering pieces that I was using while I was trying to configure all of those layers together. So now I'm just continuing to add pops of color to the layers behind the photo, again using die cut pieces from the Pink Paislee Oh My Heart ephemera pack. I did also add in that chipboard bird to the left hand side photo. Now I'm adding just a little bit of fun foam behind the photo. Those flowers created so much dimension on the background that I only needed to add just a small bit of fun foam to the photos because the photos are overlapping on top of the flowers. So while I'm working on getting everything adhered to the layout, I'll talk a little bit more about the photos and my siblings. I have 3 siblings. I have 2 sisters and a brother, and there's 13 years between the oldest and youngest. I am child number 3, so I have a sister that is 10 years older than I am. My brother is 5 years older than I am, and my younger sister is 3 years younger than I am. And we all live fairly close to each other. 3 of us live in the same town, and it's the same town that we grew up in. And my younger sister lives about an hour south, so she's not too far away. My parents have been married almost 50 years, and they live in the same house that we all grew up in. So I think that's something that's really unique, and it's something that is very special to us. We love that we can still call home home because we were all raised there, and we love that we can still go back to our childhood home for birthdays and for holidays and for special occasions. So it's something that's very near and dear to my heart, and something that I really do love and cherish. So getting back to the layout, I really haven't added too much more. I did add a few flower puffy stickers from the Oh My Heart collection, and now I'm just coming back in with more of that watercolor. I wanted to add just a little bit more kind of peeking out from the edges of the photo. Now I am bringing in a subtitle. I felt like because the mom life title was so large on the right hand side, I needed to add a little bit of text underneath the left hand side photo. So I'm grabbing the alpha stickers that are included in the Oh My Heart sticker book, and I'm placing them onto white cardstock first to spell out Mother's Day 2014. And then I am just trimming those words with my scissors, and I'll adhere those words directly underneath the left hand side photo. So once those words are adhered down, this layout is pretty much complete. I'm going to bring it a little bit closer to the camera so you can see it in a little bit more detail. I do end up going back and adding some journaling using my We Are Memory Keepers typecast typewriter. I just typed it onto white cardstock, cut it into strips, and then added it underneath the left-hand side photo, which you will see in the still shots that I am showing you now. I will be back again soon with a new layout and process video. As I mentioned in my last process video, I have quite a few summer projects that I want to get published before I move on to my fall projects. So stay tuned for another video. It should be coming up shortly, and I want to thank you all so much for watching.